A few weeks ago, I heard an amazing story that I want to share with you. My good friend Rabbi Dovi Ben Shushan was giving a shiur in Flatbush. After the shiur was over, a man comes over to him and says, "Rabbi, can I speak to you for a moment?" He says, "Sure, no problem." The man says, "My name is Joe, and I'm good friends with your brother-in-law." And when I told him that I was getting engaged to a non-Jew, he said, "Before you do, speak to Rabbi Dovi Ben Shushan." So here I am, Rabbi. I'm here to talk to you. So Rabbi Ben Shushan said, "So what do you want me to tell you?" He says, "I don't know, Rabbi, but one thing is for sure. Don't try to convince me not to marry her, because I'm not going to listen to you." So Rabbi Ben Shushan turns to him and says, "Do you realize that if you marry this girl, you're going to be saying goodbye to Judaism forever?" He said, "Rabbi, I don't really care about that." Rabbi Ben Shushan turns to him again and says, "Listen, I have an idea. Before you say goodbye to God, I think it's worth it that you should go to his palace and talk to him a little. And once you're there, you could tell him everything you want to tell him, all the grievances that you have, and say goodbye over there." "Where's God's palace?" he asks. He says, "Of course, it's in Jerusalem." "Rabbi, you mean you want me to go to Jerusalem?" He says, "Yes. I'll arrange everything for you. You just go." Rabbi Ben Shushan gets on the phone and he calls a travel agent. He books a ticket to Eretz Yisrael. Joe gets on a flight and he makes his way to the old city. Comes to the Kaisel, walks up to the holy wall, and when he sees it, he gets a little emotional. As he comes closer, he touches the wall with his hand and he gives the wall a kiss. And he says, "God, my name is Joe. I don't know if you know who I am, but I want to thank you for everything you've given me in my life. You gave me my parents. You gave me a college education. Gave me a car. Thank you, thank you." And as Joe is starting to talk, he starts to cry. He puts his head on the wall and he just stands there crying. Someone taps him on the back and says, "Excuse me, are you Jewish?" He says, "Yes, I am." He says, "Listen, do you want to learn a little more about Judaism?" He says, "You know what? I do." Joe thought to himself that before he says goodbye to God, maybe he should know a little more about what it means to be a Jew. He goes to the old city and he's taken to Eish HaTorah. And he starts to learn over there. And one day turns into 2 days, into 3 days, into a week, into 2 weeks. After 2 weeks of learning, Joe gets onto the phone and he calls Rabbi Ben Shushan. He says, "Rabbi, I'm here in Eretz Yisrael and I'm learning in a yeshiva. Do you believe it?" He says, "Joe, I'm so proud of you." He says, "Rabbi, you don't understand. Ever since I started learning, I'm a new person. And you know what? I decided that I don't want to marry that girl after all. I want to remain a Jew. I want to marry someone who's Jewish." The rabbi says, "Joe, I'm so proud of you. I can't believe you're saying this." He says, "Rabbi, you know what I want you to do? I want you to take that return ticket and I want you to give it to somebody else. Give someone else an opportunity to come to Eretz Yisrael and learn what it means to be a Jew like me." So Rabbi Ben Shushan says, "Joe, I want you to know that I didn't buy you a return ticket. I bought you a one-way trip to Eretz Yisrael." Instead of Joe saying goodbye to Hashem, he learned how to say hello. You know, when we talk about URA, we talk about an organization that has taught thousands of people not to say goodbye to Hashem, but how to say hello. And not just how to say hello, but how to live a life of a Torah Jew. They send children to yeshiva who would have chas v'sholom assimilated and been gone forever. But now, these young boys and girls are going to yeshiva and Beis Yaakov's. And they teach adults how to appreciate what it means to be a Jew, what it means to have a Shabbos, and what it means to learn Torah through their Torah mates. That is something that URA does. And it's not something that just helps them for the moment, but it's something that can affect generations. We all know what it means to have a Torah education. But for so many people out there, they don't realize what it is. And URA is there to make sure not only do they have an education, but how they go through life, learning and becoming a greater Jew. I want to tell you an amazing story that I heard about the importance of a Jewish education. There was a child, his name was Yossi. Yossi was going to yeshiva and everything was going well for him. And one day the Rebbe comes over to him and says, Yossi, I have a letter that I want you to bring to your mother. The principal told me that you have to bring this to your mother. And so Yossi takes the letter and he comes home that day. He brings the letter to his mother. His mother takes the letter and starts to read it. And when she reads it, tears start to form in her eyes. You see, this woman was an almana. Her husband had passed away several years ago. She was supporting her family by herself. It was very difficult for her, but she knew what she had to do. In this letter, it stated that due to financial difficulties that yeshiva was having, they can no longer have anyone come to yeshiva unless they're up to date with their tuition. And the letter informed her that Yossi can no longer go to yeshiva until a check is given to the yeshiva. They write they're very sorry that they have to do this, but otherwise they'll be forced to close down. The woman takes Yossi's little lunchbox and goes to her room. A few minutes later, she comes out and she says, Yossi, take this lunchbox and give it to your Rebbe tomorrow morning. Yossi comes to yeshiva the next day. He walks into class and he places the lunchbox on the Rebbe's desk. The Rebbe turns to Yossi and he says, Yossi, did you go to the principal's office like you were supposed to do? He said, no, my mother just gave me this lunchbox and she said I should give it to you. The Rebbe knew exactly what was in that letter, and he knew that Yossi could not attend yeshiva unless they were paid up with tuition. And although it broke his heart, he was beholden to the rules of the yeshiva. The Rebbe takes the lunchbox and he starts to hand it back to Yossi and he says, Yossi, please take this to the principal's office. Yossi looks a little confused. He just wants to sit in his seat. And as he takes back the lunchbox falls to the ground. It falls to the ground and it shatters open. And out comes an apple, a snack, and a diamond ring. The Rebbe sees the ring on the floor and there's a little note next to it. He bends down to the floor and he picks up the ring and he picks up the letter and he reads something that brings tears to his eyes. The letter says, here is the tuition to pay for my son. This is the diamond ring that I'm giving to you in place of tuition. It's the only thing that I have left from my husband. But for my son's education, I'm willing to give it to you. Toivli toiras picha, she writes. Me'alfei zov v'chosef. It means more to me, the Torah of the Rebbeinu Shalom, than anything in the world. You could imagine that the principal in the yeshiva got the message. Yes, they returned the diamond ring, but they had a diamond forever in Yossi, who would never forget what it means to have a Jewish education. That is something that Ura gives to every child. It's a diamond that lasts for all eternity. And out comes a polished diamond, a beautiful kinderlach, who grow into mamis and tatis, who grow into mishpachos, that are filling the world with Torah and mitzvahs. One of the programs that Ura has is the zone camps. It's a chance for a boy and a girl to have an opportunity to learn what it means to be a Torah Jew in a different type of atmosphere. Yes, they have a blast, they have fun and games, and they go on trips. But at the same time, they're learning what it means to daven every day, to put on tzitzis for the boys, and to learn what tznius is for the girls, and learning what it means to grow up in a Torah Dika atmosphere, something that they don't have at home. You know, there was a boy, Jordan. He came to the teen zone for the first time. Jordan had gone to a Reformed temple. The temple was about 20 minutes from his home, and he'd drive there actually on Shabbos. He never had a chance to have a true taste of what it meant to have Shabbos. And at the zone, this was his first taste. He sat there by davening, he was mesmerized. He came to the Shabbos Suda, and he saw the singing, and he got up and he started to sing and dance with his counselor. Never had he had such an experience before. And he was amazed. And he started learning with a Torah mate. And he started putting on tzitzis every day. And he even started putting on tefillin each day too. At the end of the summer, he was a changed person. He was a person who wanted to know more of what it means to be a Ben Torah. So before he left, he made sure to tuck in his tzitzis, because he knew that when he goes home, his parents are going to frown upon this practice. They're not going to allow him to wear his tzitzis. Well, when he came home, that's what they did. They said, you can't wear these tzitzis. Where we go, we don't do this. But you know what? Jordan made a promise that he'll never take off his tzitzis. So what should he do? You know what he did? He did something amazing. He took his pair of tzitzis and he tied them into a chain, a sort of bracelet that he put on his hand, because he made a promise that he wouldn't take off that tzitzis. And now he found a way that each and every day he'll be able to wear those tzitzis. And so he did, each and every day. And he even made a bracelet for his father. And to this day, Jordan's wearing those tzitzis. And so has his father come around to see the beauty of Yiddishkeit, to see the beauty of mitzvahs. There was a girl in Teen Zone, and one day she was walking along the path when she saw on the lawn a father and a son learning. When she saw the sight of father and son learning, it was something that she never saw before. Yes, she saw a father and son playing sports or football, but sitting down and learning Torah. And then she saw the smile on the boy's face as he learned Gemara with his father. And the father beamed as he taught the Torah to his child. She was so moved that she ran over to one of the head staff, the woman whose husband was learning on the lawn. And she says, "I'm amazed by the sight. I've never seen anything like this. And it's something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And you know what? One day I hope that I grow up and I'm like you. And I marry someone like your husband and have a child like your son." That's something that they'll get only through Ura. Ura gave them the opportunity and the chance of a lifetime. Rebbetzin Zahava Bronstein Alei Shalom said over a beautiful story that brings out this point. There was a Rebbetzin Hyneman who was sitting Shiva for her husband. Rabbi Hyneman was a great Talmud Chacham, and everyone mourned his loss. And she was sitting there in her house, sitting Shiva, and many of her students, she was a principal of a large school, and many of her students were coming in. Among the students, she noticed that there was someone sitting in the back who she didn't recognize. And finally, this woman came closer and she says, "Rebbetzin Hyneman, do you recognize me?" And she says, "No, I don't." She says, "My name is Devorah. I used to be in your school." She says, "Oh, now I remember you." She couldn't believe that the woman standing in front of her is the same girl who she taught so many years ago. She says, "Rebbetzin, I want you to know that I'm here because of you and your husband." She says, "You knew my husband?" She says, "No, but he taught me a lesson that I'll never forget." She says, "Really? What did he teach you?" She says, "Well, one day I left school and I was on my way home, and my teacher asked me, 'Can I bring a package to your home on my way?' So I said, 'No problem.' I took the package and I came to your house. It was Erev Shabbos. And I came to the door and I knocked on the door and you buzzed me in. I came up the steps and I looked at the house in front of me. I looked at the dining room table and I saw how beautifully it was set. And then I saw a sight that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. In the kitchen where you and your husband, you were washing the dishes and you handed it over to your husband who was drying it. The sight was so beautiful because in my home, I never saw such a thing. I never saw the table set for Shabbos, and I never saw such shalom bayis in a home. It was as if there was a glow in the house. And I said to myself, that's something that I promise I will have one day. And I decided then and there that I'm going to change my ways. I'm going to become a better person because of you and your husband. And here's a picture of my husband and my mishpacha. And Rebbetzin Hyneman looked at that picture and saw a beautiful mishpacha in Klal Yisrael. You just never know the effect that we can have on the people around us. And so many of the people in Ura, when they first get involved, they don't know what to expect. But when they come to a Shabbat with Ura and they spend time with frum families, they learn what it means to have a Torah home. They see what a Shabbos is. And their lives are literally changed forever. It's so important for our children to see a Torah home. It's so important for the kids of Ura to see a Torah home that should come to life, Yiddishkeit. You know, every Simchas Torah, I see this with my own eyes. In the shul that I daven in, every Simchas Torah, there's a Rebbe who takes the kinderlach. About 100 kinderlach line up to this Rebbe. The Rebbe makes a train around the shul. He starts to dance, and little by little, everyone grabs onto that train. And little kids are lined up, and they start to sing and they dance. And in the middle of the Hakafas, all of a sudden the Rebbe will stop with that train, and he'll turn to all these beautiful neshamas, and he'll scream out, Tzoin Kodshim, Heilige sheep, holy sheep. And when these kids hear the call, they all scream out, Bah. They all scream out like sheep. They scream out, we're Tzoin Kodshim, we're Heilige sheep of the Rabbeinu Shalom. And I believe that's a lesson that they'll never forget for the rest of their lives. That they are the holy sheep of Hashem, doing the service of Hashem, serving the Rebbeinu Shalom with everything that they have. Do you know how many thousands of children are out there that don't even realize that they're tzayin kachim. They don't know what it means to be a sheep of the Rabbeinu Shalom because they don't even know who their Father in heaven is. And our job is to help those children realize who Hashem is. To help them realize that they have a Father and what the purpose and their goal on this world really is. There was a school in Eretz Yisrael that did something amazing on Yom HaZikaron. See, Yom HaZikaron is the day in Israel where they sound a siren to remember the lost soldiers that fell in war. And so, when the siren blows in Eretz Yisrael, everyone stands still for a moment of silence. So there was a young man who was a counselor in one of these schools. And he said, why are we going to be silent as a remembrance for these soldiers? Let's do something for the neshamas. So he had an idea. He wrote on a piece of paper, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And he gave it out to all the children in his class. And the word spread that when we hear that siren, we're going to sing Shema Yisrael. You see, that school was a secular school, and they never say Shema Yisrael. But on that day, things were going to be different because this boy felt that there's something so much more special that we could do for them. And so when everyone gathered in the courtyard to hear that siren, and then the siren went off, there were hundreds of kids who started screaming, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And when they shouted that, their teachers heard them. And they too started to say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, for all those lost soldiers. What an impact it made on everyone who was there. You know, we find in the Torah the same idea. It says, Ki seitzei l'milchama, when we go out to war, the kohen will come out. And the kohen will announce, don't be afraid, because Hashem is with you. And he would say, Shema Yisrael. And Rashi says that even if we only have the schus of Shema Yisrael, that's a schus that we shall win the war. And the Or HaChaim HaKodesh says that this war that they went out to is a remez to the war against the Yetzer Hara. There are so many forces of evil out there today. And how are we going to battle them? Aren't we afraid? But if we could teach our children, all the lost children out there, all those soldiers, we could teach them to say, Shema Yisrael. That could win the war. It could win the war against the Yetzer Hara. And it could help bring the Geula B'Ezus Hashem. One of the things that Ura does is something called Chill Zone. A Chill Zone is a place that not only they learn how to say Shema Yisrael with their time, but they learn how to learn Torah each and every week. And Motzei Shabbos they gather together for Avos Ubanim. Well, we call it Avos Ubanim, fathers and sons, but a lot of these children don't have fathers to learn Torah with them. So their volunteer counselors would go on a Motzei Shabbos and teach them Torah and give them prizes and pizza and whatever they want. And the girls have a separate division for them. And they're learning Torah every Motzei Shabbos, learning what it means to be a Yid. And there's so much excitement. They're learning that we're on this world for one purpose. To chaperayim as many mitzvahs, to grab as many mitzvahs as we can. That's something that Ura does. That's something that we all have to support because it's so vital to us winning that war. I want to conclude with one last story. We all know that there was a great Maggid that passed away a couple of weeks ago, Rav Yankel Galinsky. And he told over a story, and it's one of my favorite stories, and I want to share it with you. Rav Yankel Galinsky says when he was a child learning in Bialystok, one day he came over to his Rebbe and he says, Rebbe, the Torah is not going well. I need some chizik. What should I do, Rebbe? The Rebbe says, I want you to go to Nevardik. Go to the yeshiva in Nevardik, travel there, and go seek out the best bacher in yeshiva and ask him to give you a little chizik. And so Yankel got on a train and he headed out to Nevardik. It took him a long time, but finally he got there. And when he came to the yeshiva, he said, please, can you show me the best bacher? They pointed out who the best bacher in yeshiva was, and Yankel went over to him and says, please, my Rebbe sent me here. I came all the way from Bialystok. Give me some musar. I want to learn Torah, but I don't know. I need some chizik. What should I do? And the young man said to him, listen, before I give you musar, you have to learn. I want you to learn a little musar. Go to a shul nearby. A few blocks away, there's a deserted shul. Go to the shul. Take out a chayvus havavas. Take out a musar sefer. Learn it. And after you learn for a half hour, then you'll be open for the musar. Come back and I'll teach you. So Yankel goes ahead and he walks a few blocks away to the shul. He opens up the door and he sees it's totally dark. It's deserted. He walks over to the Svartim Shrank and takes out a chavos havavos. But as he takes out the sefer, he hears a haunting melody. Oh yo 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 yo. Oh yo 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 yo. He's wondering, what's that sound? It's coming from the women's section. So he goes over to the women's section to peek inside. Who's singing over there? And he sees a sight that he'll never forget for the rest of his life. He sees a young man sitting over a Gemara with a candle burning. And he's sitting over the Gemara and he's singing a song. And this is what he was saying. Chatoy v'echol, chatoy v'shtei, D'almo dazlino minei, ke'lulo domi, chatoy v'chatoy v'chatoy v'chatoy, chatoy v'chatoy v'chatoy v'chatoy, Shinino, chatoy v'echol, chatoy v'shtei, D'almo dazlino minei, ke'lulo domi, chatoy v'chatoy v'chatoy v'chatoy. And this is what the words means. You have to grab and eat, chatoy v'echol. You have to grab and drink, because the world that we are going to leave is like a wedding hall. You have to grab and grab and grab and grab. Chatoy v'chatoy v'chatoy v'chatoy. And Yankel son knew what this meant. This world is like a wedding. You come to the wedding, you have to grab. If you want to get a piece of the shmorg, you have to grab. You have to get it before it's over. And this world is like a wedding. And there's so many mitzvahs available for each and every one of us to take. You have to learn Torah each day. And chaparain, chatoy v'echol, you have to eat it, you have to grab it as fast as you can before you leave the wedding, before you leave the world. And Yankel took this musar. He said, you know what? I don't have to go back to Navardik. I could go back home to Bialystok. He went back home. And he was mechuzik. And he went on to learn. He ended up becoming the great Rav Yankel Galinsky, a great Rosh Yeshiva. And he said over the story by the Levaya of the Steipler Gayan, because he said that was the person in the women's section learning the Torah. It was the Steipler Gayan, chatoiv, 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 chatoiv. And that's the lesson that Rav Yankel taught us. And that's the lesson that Ura teaches us. That every moment is a moment that we could grab if we seize that moment. If we help these children realize who their father is, that they're tzoyin kachim, that they're heilige sheep, and we teach them who they say Shema Yisrael to, that the moments that they have, they're not supposed to be silent, but rather they're supposed to be screaming to the Rebbeinu Shalom, because they're his soldiers fighting this war. And Be'ez Hashem, through that we'll be Zaycha, that will win the Muhammad that's going out there today. We'll win so many neshamas to our side. We'll earn a Yiddishkeit for thousands upon thousands of people. Will literally change the face of this world. And we'll be Zaycha through that to bring the Geula Be'ez Hashem with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu B'mheira V'yomeinu. Amen.